Alrighty, thank you for joining us today. Welcome back. What we're going to do today, instead of part 1 and part 2 of writing the paper, we are going to interview you on the spot for part 3 of the social activism project. We're going to ask you a few short questions and just get your answers and see how you feel about it. Alright, so for question 1, where did you volunteer? What were your responsibilities or tasks? And how many hours did you volunteer? So instead, I decided I was going to do an environmental cleanup. And the way I did that was I went back home to a park that is 2 blocks behind my house, and we decided to clean up all the trash, debris, everything laying around. And what we did was picked up branches, leaves, trash, recycling, disposed of it as necessary. And it took about 2.5 hours. It's a pretty big park, so it has baseball fields, softball fields, soccer fields, a track, a playground. So we went all around everything, made sure it was cleaned up and looked very decent before we called it quits, and it took about 2.5 hours. That's awesome. All right, so question 2 is, why did you choose this community service project? Does it have any significance to you personally, professionally, anything like that? I specifically chose to do this. I kind of mentioned a little bit in the other question, but I chose this because I grew up at this park. It's 2 blocks behind my house, so literally a 5-minute walk, a 2-minute drive. I did play soccer for a year. I played softball from T-ball up until 8th grade. My older cousins played baseball, so even if I wasn't old enough to play, I was out watching their games. I was out watching Friday night baseball. I was doing everything at the park, whether it was me and my sister just hanging out or my mom taking us to the park when we were little. From the time I was little all the way up until at least 8th grade, I spent my summers at that park. So I decided this was the perfect time to give back to something that gave back to me. And I have so many fond memories, and I think other kids deserve to have that too. So that's the significance it has, is it is so special and it did need the work, so why not? That was such a sweet answer. So which topics from the course, Sociology 105, Social Problems, does your community service best relate to? Okay, so which course topics? I would have to say that the course topics that I personally see a connection with would be drug and alcohol abuse, surprisingly. Definitely physical and mental health, and then crime and social control. So for the first one, drug and alcohol abuse, when we picked up all the trash, there was a lot of beer cans, beer bottles, cigarettes, cigarette packets, a lot of things that kids shouldn't necessarily be exposed to, especially if they're not already exposed to it at home. Why expose them to something that they have no need to know about? So I feel like being able to remove that exposure and take it out of their lives at such a young age would definitely help take the influence off of, oh, you have to do this, this is common, everybody does it. So taking that away from them before they even have it could definitely change them from ever falling into that social problem. And then physical and mental health is the big one, obviously. Physical health, because nobody wants to go play at a dirty park. Nobody wants to send their kids to the dirty park to play. It's covered in trash. Why would you go there? We're so in love with our technology now, so to have a clean, reliable place to send your kids to go outside, to get fresh air, to be active is necessary, and I'm just helping in that little way of giving them that environment. But not just physically, it's also mentally. If I were to wake up every morning and look outside and see trash everywhere, just looks gloomy, it's gross, I'm automatically in not as good of a mood as I could be. If I look outside, it's a pretty park, clean grass, everything's put together, looks normal. It already gives you this sense of cleanliness, a good environment, happy. So that is where the mental health comes in. And then for the last one, it kind of is a stretch, but for the park I specifically did, it's about location. So it is on one side of the park, it is a nice neighborhood. And on the back end of the park, there is a trailer park. And this sounds horrible, but kids from the trailer park will go into the park after it's closed, and they will wait until it's really late outside, nobody comes to check the park anymore, and there was actually an incident where they went and keyed all the cars on the opposite side. So the only way they got through that was the park, or else it would be a really long walk around. They used the park to get through, make an easy cut, and I think it ended up being like 7 or 8 cars that they keyed. So it kind of has that crime revolved around it, and just ensuring that it is a clean, healthy, fun environment will definitely detract those kids from hanging out there and hopefully draw a lot of positive attention and will turn that around. So without exposing the kids to it and stopping it completely, it can alleviate some of those social problems that they do have. Those are actually some very good connections. I never would have thought of some of those. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. So for this one, we wanted to know, did you get an insight on anything while you were volunteering? For example, was it easier? Was it a little bit more difficult than you expected? Or did it put into perspective some of the social problems that are happening? Okay, so I definitely did gain a lot of insight on community service, volunteering, the whole shebang. So it is a little like when you first like, oh, I have to volunteer, it's like, why do I have to do it? Are you kidding me? But when you get out there and do it, you realize that you're actually making a change. So what I realized is it's a lot easier than people would like to make it sound. It took 2.5 hours, not that big of a deal. And it, like, yeah, you're doing it to give back to the community, but the way it makes you feel is so surprising. So you look around and you're like, oh, I have to clean this park. And then you do it and you look around again and you have this like sense of accomplishment of like, I just cleaned this park, like, look at me, like, look at this park, awesome. But then I also did it with my friends. So we spent 2.5 hours of bonding, having a good time, like taking a break from school, all these kinds of things. So there's a lot of different things that happen when you're volunteering. It is definitely a lot easier than I thought it was. And I did realize that there are social problems in my town. I'm from a very, very tiny town, so I just assumed like, oh, we don't have social problems, no big deal, whatever. Looking at one park in my town, realizing there's this social problem, that one, this, and that. So it put into perspective that they are everywhere. Social problems are everywhere, but if you take that extra time, not only can the community benefit from it, but so can you. I definitely do agree that it is a lot easier than people want to make it seem. All it is donating your time, so more people should be able to get out there and volunteer to help make their community a better place. The next question, however, is for your community service, how do you think that helped alleviate social problems? Yes, I do think that it helped alleviate social problems. Maybe not like instantly, but it definitely did in the long run, or for the next generation that grows up at that park like I did. So the community service that I did personally will help alleviate a few different social problems. One is drug and alcohol abuse. So if they're not being exposed to the beer bottles, the beer cans, the cigarettes, all the things that you could be using, then they're not going to have that desire. If they haven't been introduced to it or exposed to it, then I already took that want, that exposure, that influence away. So hopefully before it even starts, we can go ahead and take that social problem away. And then also physical and mental health. This can happen at such a young age. If you let your kids sit on the couch and do nothing, play with technology or do whatever, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. So really what needs to happen is they need to be physically active. They need to be in a happy place. All of this, like, your environment affects that so much. So giving them a clean, healthy place to play outside, to be happy, to have friends, all these kinds of things will hopefully give their mental and physical health a boost. It will help them stay healthy in both of those ways. I actually never thought of some of those. I never expected somebody to think, well, oh, a 4-year-old's looking at beer cans and cigarettes, they're exposed to it when they might not be at home. That is very thoughtful. I never would have even imagined that. For the last question though, we did want to know, will you continue to do this work? Why? Will I continue this work? Yes, or hopefully. I didn't work with an organization, so it's not like I have somebody like on my back like, hey, let's do it. Come on, you said you would. Come on, come on. But I think I am more aware now that these problems are happening, and even in my little town, like, they are there, they're present, they can be fixed. So I think that every time I go home, because that's not very often, I can just do something so small like that to help brighten up the community, make it a better place, all these kinds of things. And just like slowly fixing it can have such a big outcome later on. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. We do appreciate our guest giving us a little insight on her community service work. The one thing she wants you guys to take away from this is it is easier than you think. You should do it. You can make a change, even if it's just a little change. Go out and volunteer. Other than that, thank you for joining us, and check us next time on Soch 105.